Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're looking at something that is literally keeping CFOs around the world wide awake at night. You see, across global enterprises right now, generative AI isn't just a fun toy or an experimental playground anymore. It has become a massive, highly scrutinized line item on corporate budgets. We're witnessing a fundamental enterprise AI cost crisis. But here's the real secret. This is not a technical glitch. It's a massive economic shift. The entire way we pay for intelligence is completely transforming. And if you don't understand how these pricing models are changing behind the scenes, you're going to get left behind and, honestly, probably foot a massive bill in the process. Okay, let's dive into this. The scale of this shock is truly unprecedented. So looking ahead to 2026, major tech giants realized that their appetite for AI had completely outgrown their spreadsheets. Take Uber, for example. It was recently confirmed that they burned through their entire annual AI budget for 2026 in just 120 days. 4 months. I mean, when a tech behemoth like that vaporizes 12 months of funding in a single fiscal quarter, it's a glaring signal that the fundamental math of how we use, and more importantly, how we pay for AI, has just completely broken down. So here is our roadmap for decoding this crisis today. We'll start with the enterprise bill shock, then look at the death of the flat rate before unraveling the AI pricing paradox. Finally, we'll cover actionable solutions with mastering AI FinOps and dive into the great debate of cloud versus self-hosted. Section 1, the enterprise bill shock and the end of the linear budget era. For the last decade or so, corporate finance really relied on this one golden rule, the predictable per-seat subscription. We call it the flat rate era. You bought 10 seats for your employees, you paid 10 times the price, right? Your spreadsheet was perfectly linear. You paid maybe $30 a month for what felt like an all-you-can-eat buffet of intelligence. But here's the catch. AI scales by raw compute, not by human headcount. Software vendors quickly realized they absolutely could not afford to absorb the compute costs of these incredibly heavy, complex workflows. So we violently shifted into the metered era. Major platforms like GitHub Copilot, for instance, transitioned from those flat-rate premium subscriptions directly to metered AI credits. Your predictable SaaS seat now behaves exactly like a fluctuating utility meter. You're paying for every single drop of compute you use. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, the death of the flat rate and the shift to usage. Now that we're living in this purely metered world, every single token you push through a model has a literal price tag attached to it. And the marketplace for these tokens, it is wilder than you might think. Right now, there's an astonishing 4,500x pricing spread in the AI token market. Think about that for a second. On one end of the spectrum, you have these ultra-cheap low-tier utility models like Mistral, Nemo. But on the exact opposite end, you got elite frontier reasoning models like Claude Opus 4.6 or GPT 5.4, which charge an absolute premium for complex problem solving. This 4,500x gap is basically a minefield. The teams out there burning through millions of dollars aren't necessarily using AI too much. Very often, they're simply routing basic, low-level workflows to elite frontier models, effectively paying a massive premium for intelligence they just don't need for that specific task. Section 3, the AI pricing paradox. Let's look at falling unit prices. Now, you might be wondering, and this brings us to a core mystery. New hardware architectures and optimizations are actually driving the cost of AI compute down, right? So if the cost to produce tokens is 90% cheaper today than it was when early commercial LLMs launched, why on earth are enterprise AI bills up 320%? Well, economists actually have a name for this. It's called Jevons paradox. Basically, Jevons paradox states that when a resource becomes cheaper and more efficient to produce, it doesn't lower total consumption, it actually multiplies it. Because tokens became so cheap, companies didn't just save their money, they started embedding AI into absolutely everything. And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of that paradox. Take a look at this. While frontier AI token prices have plummeted 93% since 2023, total corporate AI spend has surged by 320%. Cheap tokens unlocked massive, expensive habits. Because it was cheaper, we started using longer context windows, way more complex systems, and deeper integrations. So falling unit prices didn't reduce the bill at all, they literally created an explosion of volume. And a huge part of that volume comes from what we call the invisible scrollback. In a standard enterprise AI request, the actual user query might only be, say, 300 tokens. But to make that query secure and smart, the system quietly wraps it in 1,500 tokens of system prompts and formatting guardrails, plus another 2,500 tokens of retrieved corporate context, or RAG as you might know it. Over 80% of a standard enterprise request's bill is paid in the background before the AI even writes a single word of its output. And that's just for a simple back-and-forth chat. When we start introducing autonomous agents into the mix, we hit the agentic multiplier. If chat is a linear expense, agents are geometric. An autonomous agent doesn't just respond, it orchestrates the whole shebang. It searches the web, it parses a PDF, reviews its own work, corrects its own errors, and resends its entire conversation history back into the model on every single turn. Suddenly, one simple prompt from a developer can quietly trigger a geometric explosion of 50,000 tokens of background processing. And yet, believe it or not, tokens are still only the tip of the iceberg. When you look at the total cost of ownership, the TCO, for enterprise AI, pure model and API fees are barely 20% of the true cost. The rest of the iceberg, all that mass submerged below the surface, is entirely made up of data preparation, system integration, running infrastructure, hiring specialized talent, and managing governance and risk. Things like regulatory fines or hallucinations hitting real workflows. Section 4. Mastering AI FinOps, and how enterprises are finally regaining control. So the free lunch is over, the math is staggering, and budgets are breaking. What are smart companies doing about it? Well, they're adopting a FinOps playbook. First things first, you need token monitoring dashboards for clean visibility, right alongside strict per-team budgets. But the real magic, that's in intelligent LLM routing. Remember that 4500x price spread we talked about earlier? Smart routing means automatically sending routine, simple tasks down to those hyper-cheap utility models and reserving those premium, expensive frontier models strictly for high-stakes reasoning. Add in some aggressive data caching, a hybrid infrastructure approach, and outcome-based ROI reviews, and you suddenly transform this wild, unpredictable consumption into managed, outcome-driven unit economics. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Section 5, Cloud APIs versus self-hosted, and the big hardware rethink. As token volumes skyrocket, the old equations of renting versus building are being entirely rewritten. When you compare renting cloud APIs against building your own self-hosted or on-premise infrastructure, the trade-offs are frankly massive. Cloud APIs give you ultimate flexibility and a completely variable cost, but as we've seen, that meter spins really fast. Self-hosting, on the other hand, requires a massive upfront capital expenditure. You are buying GPUs, data center racks, cooling systems, and hiring dedicated MLOps teams. But you lock in your costs. And here is the stat that is absolutely changing the industry. For high, steady, continuous AI inference workloads, owning your own infrastructure can actually reach cost parity with renting cloud APIs in just 4 to 12 months. Yeah, you heard that right. If your enterprise is running agents 24/7, that massive upfront capex pays for itself incredibly fast, eventually delivering a massive financial advantage per million tokens. Of course, you only win if you accurately model the power, cooling, and talent in your TCO, but the financial gravity here is just undeniable. If we zoom out for a moment from corporate IT budgets, this cost compression actually has profound global implications. When AI tokenomics are managed correctly, driving the cost per unit of work down, we can start doing incredible things in frontier markets. Take global remittances, for example, where sending money home can cost 6 to 10% in fees just due to human compliance and underwriting overhead. AI-native tokenomics can automate that compliance, turning high fixed overhead into cheap, usage-linked costs, which drastically lowers the barrier for financial inclusion around the world. So the crucial point is this: the era of flat-rate, worry-free AI is officially over. Pricing models are now fundamental design constraints for your business. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. Don't just ask, what can this model do? Ask, what does it cost per decision and who's actually capturing the value? Because in this new era of AI tokenomics, the winners aren't just the companies with the smartest models, they're the ones with the cleanest math. Thank you so much for learning with us, and we will see you on the next explainer.